That's right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo.
And I'm Steven Rambolo.
And you can check us out all the time, anytime, on Jersey First TV on YouTube. If you hit that little notification bell, hit that subscribe button. Get all your Jersey First related content. You're Bridging the Gap, your Nader narrative, your Real Talk with Fernando. You can also check us out on jerseyfirst.org, where you can also sign the newsletter and sign up for our pledge. You can also check us out on Spotify. Just search up Jersey First over on Spotify. Check out the podcast. And you can check us out on demand anytime on onnj.com. But with all of that being said, Steven, what's up? How are you? How's your week been? We're wrapping up month numero uno of the new year. So how is 2024 going?
This is true. It's, I'm at the point in the semester where I think 4 weeks in and everything's picked up. I'm in the thick of it at this point. Things are starting to pile actually at this point. So I'm taking every opportunity I can to, take away from the pile of work that's, slowly lumping up and creeping behind me, adding all this extra pressure. But I love it. And that's why I'm here. I'm the kind of guy that loves pressure. So I really enjoy this. And I think coming in now as, second semester, I'm finding a lot more success in the classroom because now I know. I was talking with a classmate about this. I got this one sitting right here so I can use it. These things are not fun. These massive textbooks, right? And if you've never come across a law school textbook, it does not look like the textbooks that you were reading in high school or even college. You have to learn how to work a law school textbook. And I've found out this past week that whatever method I've concocted for myself, it works. I've been able to participate at a high level in class. I've been getting some really great feedback on final exams from last year, which is proof that I kind of had some inclinations on what I was doing before. But I've spent a majority of this week just kind of head down, working hard, getting ahead. I noticed the moment in the semester that we're at, and it's just really gratifying. And I feel like I always come on here and I always talk about gratitude and acceptance and these big mindfulness centric topics. But I think it's true when you do the work, when you do the hard things that you're passionate about, and you start to get that positive feedback from the universe and the people around you, it's motivating. And I think that's the biggest motivator. And, abstract this from law school, whatever stage you're at in life, whatever you're doing, it could be a New Year's resolution, that maybe you picked up. And we're at, today's January 31st, month's over. Sit down, have an honest assessment with yourself. This is the time to do it. You have 11 more months coming down the pipe at you. So whether you're in school, whether you're gunning for a promotion, whether you're trying to start a business, whatever it is, sit back, look at this month, say, what have I changed? What's been working well? Where have I found gratification in my work and in my connections with people? And lean into that. And I think that's probably what's helped me the most. And I spent a lot of this week doing that exactly. It's just those sort of reflective self-assessments. Where can I be better? What do I have under control? And I think, doing that periodically is what's allowed me to, continue to progress in whatever it is, the goal that you're trying to achieve. And so I've just been thinking and doing a lot of that recently, just kind of setting up and keeping the vision straight, barreling towards our goals with a relentless, feverish pursuit.
I love it. No, that's important. Absolutely. Keeping your eyes on the prize, obviously, is a big thing. But the attitude of gratitude, man, it doesn't. What does Matthew McConaughey say? Gratitude reciprocates, right?
Does.
It's just one of those things that you have to have. If you live your life being grateful for the gifts that you're given. And look, I think that we talk a lot in our modern society about privilege, like it's a bad thing. But everybody has privileges. Everybody's born with natural gifts and abilities, right? So when you use those gifts that you were given, that you didn't have to really necessarily work at or for, right? And you do something that you feel like is going to make the biggest difference in the world that you possibly can with the gifts that you are naturally given, and you're grateful for those gifts, that is acting in gratitude. You are grateful that God, the universe, whatever you might believe in, gave you these natural gifts, and you're showing that gratitude by doing the best you possibly can with it. Right? So if your natural gift is that you're a stellar athlete and you bring joy to millions by going out there and playing your sport, you bring entertainment and joy, and then you make money and you use that money to fund, charities and things like that. That is acting with gratitude. If your gift is you're smart, you can analyze information, you can distill it, and you can argue on behalf of somebody else with that, and you're out there in law school or you're a lawyer and you're making differences in everybody's life and people's lives every day, that's acting in gratitude. Right? So finding whatever that gift is and then using that gift for good is living your life in gratitude. So I think it's one of the most important things we can do.
100%. And I've been doing this thing recently where I'll pick somebody interesting. Maybe it's somebody, obviously all the law textbooks I read, maybe a judge or a justice who I've been reading a lot of, and I'll just kind of dig through some of their writings, some quotes, and I'll pull something out. And so this is what I've been rocking with this week. And I think it goes right into this message and something to share before we, get on with our stories. But this is from Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., famous among the most
judge.
Yes, among the best American jurists there ever was. And this is a quote, and I think it's really powerful, and it sat with me, and it goes exactly to what we're saying. He says, quote, "Every calling is great when greatly pursued." And that is the attitude that I'm trying to take with me for everything. And so no matter what it is you do it great. Do it to the best that you can. And I guarantee you will be great at what it is. And it doesn't matter what society agrees with you, how great whatever you're doing might be. It's beside the point. You need to absolve yourself of that, because all the things that we talk about, we get on and we spend the first 10 minutes of every show, talking about these things. And I think it's really insightful because these are the things that motivate us, people, individuals, humans, to go and chase the things that are intrinsic and rewarding inside of us. I could care less if society thought being a lawyer was glamorous or if they think it's a, bottom of the barrel job. It doesn't matter. The work fulfills me and I want to be great at it. And I think if I do it greatly, I'll have a great calling in it. And I believe that to be true for everybody. So that's what I would want to leave with our positive dream seeking thought of the week today is that.
Yeah, I couldn't say that better. I think that that's absolutely right. And Oliver Wendell Holmes is a phenomenal judge. He's one of my favorite judges to read. Probably my favorite judge to read. I kind of geek out whenever he comes up in a case a little bit. But there's something so real about it. It's almost more real than reality in a way when you are in that zone of doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it's really a very, very beautiful and fulfilling thing. So find that. Find what you are meant to do. And you know what it is. I can't tell you what it is, but and just jump in. And that's my little piece of advice and thing. I kind of had a week of pain. Actually, I've been in pain all week. I got a neck problem this week, so I've been struggling with that all week. But it's finally better today, which is good. And by better, I'm gonna give it a solid 80% better, because there's still some movement that if I move my neck the wrong way, you're gonna see me cry on camera. But we're making our way through. We're making our way through. A lot of heating pads, a lot of BioFreeze this week.
Nice.
Those have been my best friend. So that's what I've been struggling with this week. But we've, I feel like physical issues just make everything else worse. Like if you're in physical pain, any sort of like emotional or like nuisance issue that pops up is immediately 10 times worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll take the soapbox for 30 seconds. And that's why I'm always an advocate for people to take care of themselves and be healthy, because it is one contingency that you are reasonably in control of. And so long as you take care of the vessel, you'll reach the destination that you're trying to get to. But if you don't take care of the car, think about it like you're trying to go to the store, but you haven't changed the oil. And instead of putting gas in the tank, you've accidentally been putting diesel because you don't care what you put in the tank because you just got to get up and you got to go. So all the analogies and everything applicable. I agree with you. So side message on top of that, just take care of yourself, just in general, everybody, and chasing those dreams, fulfilling your great purpose greatly becomes much easier when you don't have to, deal with any of those.
Absolutely, absolutely. But Steve, let's get into some stories. What do you say?
Let's do it.
So at the end of last week, we teased this story, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. And it's coming out of the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office. So the ACPO, if you will, along with a couple other multiple local and state and federal law enforcement agencies, have launched a county-wide violent crime initiative, which is the goal of it is to identify the most violent offenders within the county. Basically, the VCI is modeled after other counties that have similar programs, and it's shared by the U.S. Attorney Philip Sillinger's office. And this is according to the Atlantic County Prosecutor William Reynolds. And basically what the program does is it identifies and attempts to share the intelligence about some violent offenders in Atlantic County with surrounding counties like Ocean and Cumberland County. Atlantic County is the first VCI to include juveniles because they said that the violent crime is going from adults to juveniles. Basically, the adults are using the juveniles as instruments to commit these violent crimes in the areas because they know they're going to get lesser sentences. So think about gang-affiliated crimes, right? The people on the street maybe selling the drugs or doing the, going out and doing the hits or something like that. It's usually the young people that are trying to get into the ranks of this organized crime ring because of multiple reasons. If they get caught, it's not like a higher up in the organized crime ring getting caught. And two, they're going to get lesser sentences because they likely have lesser records. And if they're minors, they're not going to be charged as heavily as adults do. So that's why they've included juveniles in this. Basically, it works through strategic sharing of law enforcement intelligence and the efficient use of combined resources. Prosecutor Reynolds said that the book of intelligence is then shared in detention hearings with Superior Court judges who is determining the detention. And that would help to keep the offender themselves detained so that they don't go out and commit maybe more crimes while they are waiting. And also so that they don't become future victims of crimes. So ultimately, the goal is when the violent offender is taken off the street, it not only decreases and it makes it not only decreases, but it makes it unlikely that he or she will recommit and that he or she will be a victim of somebody retaliating against them. Right. And so this is coming from an article written by Jen Ursula at New Jersey 1015. And that's the gist of it. And Stephen, I'm curious as to your initial thoughts about this type of initiative. I personally think that it's smart if we're trying to clean up the streets of Atlantic County, particularly Atlantic City. There's going to be a lot of like crimes into these Cumberland County, into Ocean County, also coming from like Philadelphia, and issues within the big city of Philadelphia. So I think the goal is good. I can see people having issues with this intelligence sharing aspects of it. But at the end of the day, it's not like these counties don't work together already. So
Yeah. All right. So I'll say this much. In terms of what the initiative is, right? The Violent Crime Initiative. I think anybody who comes out in opposition of such a thing is probably not somebody that I would want living in my community. Because any community I live in, I'd like it to be as safe as possible. Surely. I agree with you. I was thinking about it, and the sharing of the intelligence. I don't know. I would want there to be some protocols in place to make sure that this information wasn't just going around willy nilly. I would want there to be some sort of bona fide identification. Like, we need this person is known to travel between Atlantic and Cumberland. So it's fair that we share this information with Cumberland County, because nothing scares me more than an overly policed population. And so I think that, and this might be a scalding hot take here, but if I'm committing crimes in Atlantic County and the Atlantic County, prosecutors, police, detectives are really bad at their job and they can't catch me, and I go to Cumberland County for a weekend with the family, maybe the Cumberland County prosecutors are a little bit more on the ball, and, they come and they nab me over some shared intelligence. I don't know if I really like that. I feel like, as much as I don't want people committing crime, you should have some sort of, police have to do their job too, is sort of where I'm at. And I understand the
sure, you don't want the
benefits.
Toms River. Sorry, you don't want
No, go
the. I
ahead.
was just going to quickly say, you don't want the Toms River cop pulling you over in Berkeley Township because you were speeding when they're out of their jurisdiction.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm seeking to avoid. And so that's what worries me about these things is, sure, you can share this information with these people in Cumberland County, but if an officer in Cumberland County arrests me for something I did in Atlantic County, I think that's going to open a lot of headaches for a lot of people, much like you and I, in the near future, who are going to have to deal with those jurisdictional questions and, the methods of.
Well, that's where the New Jersey AG's office would come into play, and the state police would come into play.
Big Brother.
Sure, I'm just saying, like, if they're committing crimes across county lines, that's where the Attorney General's office is going to come.
Yes, no, and that's why these initiatives are structured the way that they are. Is, like I said, you're creating a more policed population. Now, like I said, the Violent Crime Initiative, if we're targeting violent criminals, I'm not really opposed to it. I worry, though, that these are the kinds of initiatives where we say, oh, we're going to start looking for violent criminals. Well, then who's deciding what's violent? And maybe that definition gets a little bit, lax as the years go on and the program finds success. And now maybe it's just the crime initiative, and we're living again in this big police surveillance state where, Big Brother AG can come in and scoop you up anywhere, anytime for anything you've done. And that's what worries me principally about it.
And I can see that. Now, another principal, maybe issue that I can see somebody being worried about is the fact that they are sharing this information to keep people detained longer. So it's going to be keeping people in jail longer while they're waiting for, their trials and whatnot. So the reason for that, they say, is to protect not only the community, but the individual from being a victim of violent crime. And they say something like, if these people remain in jail during the time and they're not released released immediately, they are 70 to 80% less likely to be victims of violent crime themselves or to commit violent crime. Yes, like, obviously that is true. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if the person's in jail, they're probably not going to be committing any violent crimes to the community at large.
To the community.
Now, the question becomes, what is more important here? That personal liberty that that person should be able to go out if they're not a risk of, say, fleeing or not showing up to any future hearings or something like that. The personal liberty of having that person be able to go home, especially if you're talking about a juvenile, which in most scenarios you don't want to detain juvenile. You don't. They try not to detain juveniles, keep them detained for too long. Or the safety of that person and community by keeping them detained, right? And this is the essential question with all law enforcement issues, is this balance between personal liberties in a free society and safety. And so you have to make a decision. Which do you value more? If your son or daughter was maybe caught up doing something that they shouldn't, would you want to be able to take them home and make sure that, you'll make sure that they get into, they go to their hearings and everything like that, but they shouldn't sit in jail, right? In your mind, or should they? Does that not matter? So, Stephen, that's my question.
So I think I will always default to personal liberty. And I think that on principle, those are the foundation of what makes this country, what makes our legal system so great, in my opinion. And bail, so what we're talking about, for those of you who don't know, is bail reform. So there's no cash bail in New Jersey. And that's why these detention hearings exist, is to determine these people that get picked up, processed, booked, before they have any, appear in front of a judge. They appear in front of something like a magistrate almost, who goes over these detention hearings. I think that on the concept of bail reform is a great policy. And I think something like the Violent Crime Initiative could be a useful tool because, like you said, it allows the people, the judges, the magistrates who make these decisions on whether or not to detain people prior to their hearings, it's going to give them a little more information about, the character of this individual, the context of the crime, how prolific, their criminal activity is. If it is cross county, maybe this is somebody that we do want locked up. Like, there's a lot more factors that you learn that make the decision easier for the judge. However, I'm not concerned with the judge having an easy job. I think that when you're administering justice, it should be a hard job. You should have to really sit and think and consider and weigh all these options. And so, again, when those tools that they use come at the sacrifice of somebody's personal liberty or their ability to, I think that you have a right to not feel policed. I think that that's, pretty generally, nobody likes feeling policed. And the more that we allow that, and we can, obviously there's great justifications for it, I will always err on the side of protecting somebody's personal liberty. And I don't want the state, sticking their nose into what I'm doing and telling other state agents, hey, he's going here, he's going there, he's doing this, he's doing that. I want nothing to do with that. As an innocent person and as a criminal, I want nothing to do with that. And the topic of juveniles, I think, is really interesting as well, because, again, juveniles in the law, we tend to afford them extra protections, especially from hearings like this. And you're not really allowed to go and see what happens in a juvenile courtroom. And so why should the police be allowed to share information with other agencies about what juveniles in their jurisdiction are doing? That doesn't really sit right with me either. So I think, again, I started this by saying, if you come out in opposition to the VCI, I probably don't want you living in my community. But I think it's well-intentioned. It's very clearly well-intentioned. But the application, like anything in this realm, is a slippery slope, because you don't know, in 3 to 5 years, if these VCIs continue to proliferate, they have success, how far is it going to go? What are we going to continue to call violent? Like I said, the VCI might turn into the CI, and then it might just turn into the I, and we're just investigating everybody and keeping tabs on everybody and what they do and all the time and sharing it with everybody, just in case somebody decides to do something bad one day, maybe, possibly, potentially. It's too slippery of a slope. I don't want to go down it. And I think that there's better ways, maybe more community-centric ways, that we can combat and catalog and categorize violent crimes that happen and share that information with these judges and these prosecutors in a different, less centralized way.
I can see those concerns. I would disagree just on the pure fact of I think that the liberties that have been enshrined by the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendments will protect something like that from happening. And I think that the Violent Crime Initiative uh, is a good for society when we are seeing big cities having massive crime waves over the last few years that are akin to something of 4 decades ago, 5 decades ago. I think that there are natural ebbs and flows in our country's history of crime waves.
Mhm.
And once you crack down on certain levels of crime, you see crime dissipate and drastically so. And places become safer and people be, become safer as a result. Um, so I support it. Of course, I understand and I think your concerns are valid. I don't necessarily see this going down that slippery slope, though. I think that there are plenty of ways to curtail that before it happens. And if it begins to happen, we should take the steps to prevent it from happening further. But at where it is right now, I don't have any problem with it. I think it makes more informed decisions, like you said, for the magistrates. And I think that it is going to make communities safer. And you know, if it's true that you see a 70 to 80% rate of more safety for even the defendants, I don't think it's a bad thing.
So I should preface, not even preface because my argument's already been laid out, but I guess I should end and follow up with essentially that I agree with all of those things. Where my contentions stem from is really that I just have no trust in the state to allow this system to continue to function the way that it does. And it's ultimately a distrust in the people that are going to operate within this system. And like I said, it's like the struggle with technology. Like we have AI, right? Any chance that somebody can get to make their job easier, they're going to take it. So again, we're dealing with a difficult discussion. We're administering justice. We're, as a society, deciding to detain people, hold them in jail, punish them, take away their rights. These are very serious things that we're talking about. That could be your neighbor, it could be the kid that you grew up with down the street, and anything that makes that easier to do. I understand it's two sides. It might be easier for the judge, but if it's easier for the judge to make a decision, it's also easier for the judge to take away your rights. And that's, my qualm there. And it's balancing that. So off the rip, give it a whirl, see how it goes. But this strikes me as one of those initiatives that could very easily be perverted to better serve the intentions and desires of the state and this big information sharing hub of police and executive agents. I want nothing to do with that.
That's fair, but Stephen, I think it leads us well into the next story, and unfortunately, we are close on time, so we got to keep this one a little bit tighter. But let's talk about our next story, Steve.
It does, yeah. So this comes out of the hometown, Toms River, New Jersey, and actually, we're recording this on. This is Wednesday, the 31st of January, approximately 6:10. So in about 20 minutes from now, 6:30. There's going to be a pretty important council meeting happening. So this story is from the Asbury Park Press. This was written actually today, 5:00 this morning. They were talking about a gathering that had happened in downtown Toms River over some issues regarding the police. So the mayor of Toms River, Daniel Roderick, has essentially put out this initiative, and he's planning to go through with it with council support tonight. They're trying to eliminate 2 police captain positions in order to afford more room in the budget to support 8 new emergency medical technicians, EMTs. So what we saw outside of Toms River, downtown, the complex last night, and over the past few weekends, has been these people gathering with these signs saying that they stand with the Toms River PD. They don't want to downsize the police department. And, so, there's pictures of gentlemen out there with signs that say, not my mayor, and it's pictures of Roderick. And so this has caused quite a stir in the community because we have two police captains whose positions are going to be removed from the force in order, like I said, to afford the addition of 8 new EMTs. So what's interesting about all of this, however, is that the police officers whose positions are going to be eliminated are actually retiring. And I thought this was just an interesting little caveat here. And it, if I'm going to be frank with you, disgusts me to a whole new level. The salary cap that's going to be afforded by these two gentlemen retiring is about $700,000. So we'll call it dead even. These two police captains are making $350,000 a year, potentially. And the fact that that salary is enough to pay for 8 new EMTs who are first responders that I believe provide oftentimes more meaningful services to the community than a police officer is just grotesque in my opinion. And I think on a separate issue, we should maybe pay the EMTs a little bit more. You shouldn't get 8 for 2. I think that's a poor deal. Maybe those cops are a little bit overpaid. But regardless of all that, so we find out these guys are retiring. The jobs aren't actually being eliminated. And then on top of that, the police chief, Mitch Little, made a plea to the mayor of Toms River. And he said, listen, man, just wait, because we might be able to get access to grants to supplement the money that you're trying to pay these EMTs. And we could save these positions, promote 2 new people into captain, and also get the 8 EMTs. Now, why are these 8 EMTs important? Statistics show, and Roderick included this in an open letter to constituents, that on average, when somebody calls for an ambulance in Toms River, they're waiting about a half an hour. And I have some personal experiences with this. So where I live in Ortley Beach, we're on the barrier island. So we're separated by a bridge from Toms River, but we are still under the jurisdiction of Toms River. There used to be a volunteer first aid squad in Ortley Beach. Many years ago, my grandfather was actually on the squad. It was dissolved after Hurricane Sandy sometime around 2015, 2016. And the location where that building stood is actually about 2 blocks from my home. It remained undeveloped, and they recently, over the past few years, put new pickleball courts in there. But they made specific mention of the individuals that live on the barrier island and how their wait time for ambulances when they have medical emergencies is even higher than that 30 minutes. And just to give you some more perspective on this, there's only 1 unit that exists, and they are technically authorized to help the people of South Seaside Park, and Seaside Heights. But if ever they are available and somebody needs medical attention in the township of Toms River areas on the Barrier Island, Ortley Beach, Chadwick Beach, and a little more north, they're responsible for that. So you have essentially 1 rig on the Barrier Island that's responsible for 5 or 6 towns. And so 8 EMTs, at least for the community that I come from, would be a blessing, because that's enough to almost get 3 rigs out of, potentially 4 rigs if you're just going to double up. So you're increasing the amount of presence of these EMTs. You're going to drive that wait time down, and people shouldn't be waiting a half an hour for an ambulance if you're having a medical emergency. So I think it's a very interesting proposition that's about to go in. It clearly activated the community. And I think it's to me, it's kind of, I don't know, when you juxtapose these two things, I think a lot of people would normally reduce the conversation to you either support first responders or you don't. But what's going on here is we're taking money from one sect of first responders and trying to allocate it because we notice that there's another sect that is lacking. They're not providing the best service to the community that they can. And so to come out in opposition of what the mayor is doing, to me, seems really foolish. And I think it's, emblematic of this culture that we've been in for the past few years. I would go as far as to say decades, where you have to be pro-police on everything all the time, no matter what it is. And I personally, if I was there, I would love to ask these people sincerely if they believe that 2 police officers provide the same service to the community that 8 EMTs do. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're arguing about. We can call it money, we can call it semantics, but these 2 gentlemen are retiring, and the mayor is attempting to take their $700,000 salary and disperse it between 8 EMTs to drive the wait times down of ambulances. I don't really see how anybody in the community could be so upset that they gather in mass, about 100 people downtown, signs, megaphones, and all, to protest this motion by the mayor. So I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I think my big thing is it's not even how you're framing it where it's like 2 police officers for 8 EMTs. It's not even a matter of less officers, like beat cops, patrolmen. It's 2 police captains. It's like administrative, bureaucratic positions at the end of the day. It's not like you're losing anybody on patrol. You're losing people in offices. And the 2 gentlemen that are retiring, I'm sure have worked very hard to get to their positions, and I'm sure they did a lot for the community, but they're retiring. And so now your question is, do you want more in these bureaucratic positions, or do you want 8 people on the ground in ambulances? Like, this doesn't seem like cops versus EMTs. This seems to me more like bureaucracy versus EMTs. And it's being framed as a defunding the police thing, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around, first of all, Toms River having multiple police captains to begin with, let alone, being upset that 2 of them are retiring. And it just doesn't strike me as something that we need to replace off the bat, I should say. Now I am interested in the police chief's argument that this could be funded through other means, and we don't have to lose these positions at all. I think that the mayor should maybe try and go down that path first. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to me like an attack against the Toms River Police Department. It's getting rid of 2 administrative positions and replacing them with boots on the ground that we actually need in these EMTs. And that's kind of where I come down on it. It'd be one thing if we were like getting rid of a precinct or something like that, which we're not doing.
Correct. And I think, and we don't have much time to talk about this, and we could talk about this at another date, but I think this highlights for me an important issue, which is it's okay. You can be pro-police, right? And I was sort of alluding to this before, but not every issue, when it comes down to it, should be reduced to these sensational topics. Like the signs that these people are holding, they literally say, stand with TRPD, no to downsizing, keep Toms River safe. And I would simply, in the least combative way, want to ask these people, are 2 administrators leaving this that you're going to replace with 8 emergency medical technicians? Is that degrading the safety of your community? Is that downsizing the effect and reach and effectiveness of the police in Toms River, who do a fine job as it is? And I think the answer is very obviously no. And so it's just so interesting to me that people can be motivated. And I think this goes into a much deeper conversation about media, persuasion, politics, party lines, ideologies. But it struck me because I read this article, I saw the pictures, and off the rip, I would have thought exactly what you said. They're trying to get rid of a precinct. They're trying to, disband a task force, do something. It's 2 administrators who make $700,000 collectively in return for 8 EMTs in a community where the average wait time for an ambulance is a half an hour. That seems like a pretty square deal. And on top of that, like you said, you have the suggestion of the police chief who says, wait, we might be able to get grants to support all of these initiatives. So I agree with you. Maybe hesitation is the correct answer. Maybe exploring all of the options is the correct answer. What I know for a fact is not the correct answer is misrepresenting the issue and exaggerating the effect that this is going to have on the community in order to achieve some political end. That's what's grotesque
Yeah.
about this to me. And it's really a shame.
Yeah, I just have one quick point because we do have to wrap up, which is like, what if they were disbanding these two chief positions or captain positions for 8 patrolmen, right? Which they reasonably could do. Like that,
Mhm.
would you be saying that you're making the community less safe? Absolutely not. You would arguably saying, oh, they're trying to make a police state because now we have 8 more people patrolling, right? So it just doesn't like the safety argument doesn't hold much water to me because you're not taking actual people off of the street, you know?
I agree with you. And my parting message on this would be to anybody with any issue, afford yourself the opportunity to contextualize everything and understand both sides before you take a position, because I guarantee you there was people who have been driving around downtown Toms River the past few days that have been seeing these signs and probably have the complete wrong idea about what it is the mayor is trying to do. And whether or not I agree with the mayor on everything that he does is beside the fact. What I will say is I tend to agree. Two administrators who are retiring anyway, which is the incredible caveat of all of this, being replaced by 8 EMTs in a community where the average wait time for a hospital is 30 minutes, sounds like a mayor who is trying to do right by his constituents. And so I'm all in on ragging on a politician when they do something bad for the community. That's what you open yourself up to as a politician, as a servant to the public. But I don't think that any of this has been justified. I think that it's been like I said, just some sort of means to achieve a dirty political end. And it's really something that I think the community should have a more thoughtful conversation about, because you're talking about first responders at the end of the day: police, EMTs, firefighters, the people on the front lines that keep the community safe every day. We should be in agreement about what we want safety to look like. And again, 2 administrators for 8 EMTs to me is not downsizing the police department. I don't think it's going to open any extra threats to Toms River. I think it's a great thing that the mayor's doing. And truthfully, I hope when his meeting starts in a half an hour, he gets the motion passed.
Fair enough, Stephen, and I think that that's a good place to call it for this episode of Bridging the Gap on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malullo.
I'm Stephen Rambolo.
Have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you next